Hey guys, this is the first in a series of six video capsules on the intellectual operations, and we start with situate in time and space. So we're going to go straight past this because we've seen this already, and we're going to look at this, the situate and time and space basic framework. So these questions will usually make use of timelines for the situate in time aspect, and they will make use of maps in the situate in space aspect of this particular intellectual operation. They're usually going to ask students to place events chronologically or locations geographically. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot of hidden meaning here. So we go straight to a development guide for the situate in time. We broke it up in two. We'll look at situate in space a little later, but right now let's look at situate in time. So if you look at the development guide, you'll notice that we're dealing with the French Revolution as a case study, and I've broken it up into three different versions or levels of difficulty of this kind of situate in time kind of question. So let's start at the beginning. So a beginner version of this question will just ask students to place an event on a timeline. So in this case, they're given a document, which is the tennis court oath, and they'll have to decide if it comes before 1689, after 1689, but before 1751, or after 1751. So in this case, the answer is simply C. Students will write C or circle C or anything like that. If we look at a more intermediate version of the same question, you might ask students to place multiple events on a timeline. And in this case, one is already given as sort of like flex point. So document number 2 happens in between. And then you have to place documents 1 and 3. So document 1 is a tennis court oath, and document 3 is an excerpt from the English Parliament's Bill of Rights. So in this case, the outline would go something like 3, 2, 1. That would be a correct answer. So it's slightly more difficult than the beginner version. If we finally look at an advanced version of this question, is to actually, you might have students build a narrative using a timeline. So this timeline, as you could see, it's already built, but you can have students build this timeline themselves as part of a part A for this question. So after building this timeline, which we saw, it's actually the same timeline from the intermediate question, students can come to some sort of narrative, like a one sentence kind of thing that looks something like this. The drafting of the Bill of Rights in 1689 brought Enlightenment ideas to the forefront in Europe, and the encyclopedia helped the spread of these ideas, both of which led to the French Revolution. So you're going to notice that there's some overflow into other IOs here for sure, but this could be like the most advanced version of using timelines. So this is the development guide for the situate in time IO, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Let's jump straight into situate in space. So here's another development guide. Instead of the French Revolution here, we're looking at Quebec City and the history of Quebec City. So we're situating in space. So here we're dealing with maps and not timelines usually. The beginner kinds of questions will simply ask students to place a location on a map, and in this case, which letter corresponds to Quebec City. So they'll know that it's C for any variety of reasons. It depends on how they were taught in class about the location of Quebec City. A more intermediate version will ask students to use a map to identify relationships on a map. So you might give them a map of Montreal and a map of Quebec City, as two historical maps show right here. And they'll have to see that there's a relationship in the fact that water is a common theme. So an answer to a theoretical question could be something like early settlements in New France were built along the St. Lawrence, which acted as a colonial highway. So in this case, it's not purely a geographical question, although geography is the crux of the issue. If you take a peek at the advanced version of this question, you have to give context to a historical event using a map. So now we're pushing it even one step further. So the document you see here is the Siege of Quebec City in 1760. So an answer to any theoretical question that you could put up here could be something like, Quebec City was a natural fortress due to its cliffs and being located where the river narrows. So they'll learn about how Quebec City was easily defended, and this map sort of helps them pick that out. So this was a development guide to the Situate in Space IO, and I hope you check out the next ones.